Hello and Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for September 2021 exams. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor. I hope all of you can hear me and my voice is loud and clear to all of you. If you can confirm that, so we can start with the proceeding for the day 2. Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. So let's start on with the Practice to Pass webinar for September 2021 exams for Advanced Audit and Assurance. And today we are meeting for the day 2. Now, just a quick recap of the agenda of the webinar, particularly for the day 2. Now, yesterday on the day 1, we started the webinar and I focused on multiple areas, including the recent changes, awareness about the practice platform, and then we started attempting a March-June 21 question number 1B towards the end of the day 1. And that's from where I will be capturing the day 2 again. And the day 2 specific agenda item is ethical, professional, and quality control issue. So we have two sets of things today on day 2. On the day 2, first of all, there will be a continuation of the day 1 agenda, because towards the end of the day 1 yesterday, I was discussing with you a question on audit risk, and I still need to discuss a lot more on that today. Then once I complete the day 1 agenda, I will be starting with the particular day 2 agenda, which is to look at the ethical, professional, and quality control issues. More importantly, the quality control and professional issues. So let's start the journey. Let's start the day 2 and let's resume where we left the day 1. Now, just a quick recap. Yesterday, we started with March-June 21, question number 1B on the practice platform. And I want to give you a quick recap of that because we discussed a couple of important things towards the end of the webinar yesterday. And I hope you all remember that, because that will really benefit me in terms of delivering the day 2. So let's go back where we were yesterday. Okay, I hope you can all see the practice platform on your screen. Just let me start the question. This was the question we were attempting yesterday. I hope you can see the screen. This is exactly where we left yesterday, right? Now, just to take a quick recap, and I want your quick answers to my questions, so I'm very comfortable that all of you are with me. Now, first thing first, when I started discussing this practice platform with you yesterday, taking account of the very recent paper, the March-June 21, question number 1B, right? So I told you that there are two sides of the screen, the right hand side and the left side of the screen. On the right hand side of the screen, you can just spend 2 minutes in the exam hall, and the right hand side of the screen will just tell you about the name of the audit firm, the name of the client, and the number of exhibits that are available on the left hand side of the screen. And perhaps the question will tell you on the right hand side of the screen whether the company is listed or is not listed. That is the maximum information you will get on the right hand side of the screen. So hardly 2 minutes of the time you will be spending on the right hand side of the screen, right? Now, once you complete the right hand side of the screen and you highlighted some important information, as I highlighted yesterday with you, and you can also see the highlighted areas on your screen today as well. Then you move to the left hand side of the screen. Now, on the left hand side of the screen, I mentioned yesterday that there is no need to read the requirements. You can see a separate area coming, requirements. There is no need to read that, because in the requirement, there is nothing special. Examiner will be telling you there are 46 marks in the email and there are 4 professional marks for writing a briefing note. You already know that because you must have practiced a lot before entering the exam hall. So you can save your time and you should not open requirements. I hope you're clear on that, everyone, right? Is everyone clear on that? So I would not encourage you to open and click on the requirement window, right? Can you respond to me? Because you automatically know what is in the requirement, right? So leave the requirement. Now you have exhibits, right? Now, before you open the exhibits, you will open the briefing note. You will open the briefing note, which is the response option, and you will set up the briefing note as I set with you yesterday. I hope you remember. Now, when you open the briefing note, you set up the briefing note, and I guided you about setting up the briefing note even before you start reading the exhibits. You know the format of the briefing note. I have guided you about the format of the briefing note in almost every webinar I have conducted. So you can watch the previous webinars if you have missed out on how to write a briefing note, including the June 21 webinar. So you structure a briefing note, you put the heading briefing note to from subject, and then the introduction. And in the introduction, after the introduction, sorry, you put A, B, C, D, and then you put a conclusion. Now, once you have structured your briefing note in a skeleton form, you don't know what to write in introduction. You don't know what is A, B, C, D. So you need to go and then open the partner email. So after you put the skeleton form of the briefing note, you go down and open the first exhibit, partner email. And from the partner email, you will get to know what is ABCD. So you read the partner email, and that will tell you what you need to do in A, what you need to do in B, what you need to do in C, and what you need to do in D. So you carefully read that out. Whatever you need to do in A, B, C, D, okay, whatever you need to do in A, B, C, D, just copy that into your briefing note. See, we did that yesterday, right? I copied A, business risk 10 marks, B, audit risk 20 marks. I copied C, audit procedures, and I copied D, explain the ethical issue. So I copied these requirements from the partner email, and we set up the briefing note. Then I put the introduction quickly, that what is the purpose of writing this briefing note, and the purpose of writing the briefing note was very clearly mentioned looking at the requirements. Now I hope all of you are clear so far, so forth. So you structure a briefing note, then you open the email of the partner, and from the email of the partner, just copy paste the requirement in the briefing note. So you exactly know what is to be done in a briefing note. And I think within 5 minutes, you can set up a briefing note alongside reading the requirements of the question from the partner email. Is everyone clear so far, so forth? Can we move ahead on the next step? Okay, that's great. Now, I did mention something very important yesterday. I hope you all remember that. That is to make a rough working before the briefing note. I hope you can all see my rough working on the screen here. Before the briefing note. Now, that rough working is important. Whatever rough working you have to do pertaining to the 50 marks question, you can do ahead of your briefing note. Now, there are two options here. One student might like to do the rough working on a scratch pad, and one student don't like to do working on a scratch pad. Now, understand one thing. Every one of you uses computer, and every one of you, when using computer, you know how to, every one of you use a computer in a different manner. Now, it's totally up to you, right? It's totally up to you that how you want to use the practice platform. Some of you will like the scratch pad option. Some of you will not like the scratch pad option. Some of you will like the on-screen calculator. Some of you will not like the on-screen calculator, right? So it's like flexible what you want to do. Now, I believe when you open a scratch pad and you open a briefing note, that's like lots of windows, right? That's like lots of windows, and then managing lots of windows becomes difficult. Now, some students can manage 3 windows at a time. Some students can't even manage 2 windows at a time. So you need to decide what sort of a student you are. Can you manage so many windows on the dashboard, or you just want to keep 2 windows at a time? Now, in that context, I believe the rough working should be in the briefing note, And once you end the briefing note, you should delete the rough working. Is that clear to all of you? So even if you want to use a scratch pad, that's totally up to you. As a tutor, I am not denying using a scratch pad, but it's my recommendation that when you open a scratch pad, you're opening another window. And when you're opening another window, that's creating a lot of panic on your dashboard. You need to see lots of things on your dashboard, and more messy the dashboard is, it will be difficult for you in the exam paper to control your stress level. So I think you should keep your dashboard very neat and clean, and you should have just one main window, that is the briefing note window in front of your screen, and you close the exhibits. Right? Are you clear with this methodology of going with going with practice platform, everyone? Right? So you do the rough working, but tell me, will you delete the rough working after you complete the briefing note? Everyone, will you delete it? Please ensure you delete it, right? Now, what are you doing in the rough working? The first thing you're doing in the rough working is that when you structure the briefing note in the rough working, do the materiality calculation. Copy the numbers of total asset, copy the number of profit before tax, copy the number of revenue from the exhibits. Now, which exhibit will give you the total asset number, the profit number, and the revenue number? Every time in the exam paper, there will be an exhibit which will be about the financial statement. Now, that exhibit about the financial statement over here was the exhibit number 4 yesterday. So we opened the exhibit number 4 yesterday, and from that exhibit number 4, we copied the numbers. We copied the numbers pertaining to revenue. We copied the number pertaining to the total asset, and we copied the number pertaining to the profit before tax. I hope you remember that. And we copied those number and we pasted those numbers in the briefing note because we will be needing those numbers. Now, when you start reading the case from the start, you will find numbers. Wherever you find number, you will stop and calculate the materiality. I hope you remember when we were reading the case yesterday in a logical manner from start to end, we found 5 areas where we found materiality. We found materiality for the acquisition of the rainforest. We found materiality for the government grant. We found materiality for the legal case. We found materiality for the reduction in the fair value. And we found materiality for inventory. So we found a couple of areas in the examiner exhibits where materiality calculation was possible, right? So when you are reading and planning, you should determine the materiality, because the determination of materiality will later help you write a very good answer. Now, for every issue given in the case study, materiality will not be possible. But for some of the issues, materiality calculation will be possible. So if you can do the materiality calculation in your rough working, that's very, very good for you. Now, last thing, when I started to read things with you yesterday, when I started to read the information with you yesterday, I first read the partner email and then I closed it down, because from the partner email, the only thing we get to know is the requirements. We close it. Then we have 4 exhibits, right? We opened the second exhibit, background information, yesterday, right? And I read this background information with you. And from this background information, we just found 2 risks. I think we found 3 risks. The first risk we found was 30% timber is exported. Then we found the risk, this is the new audit client. And then we found the risk that the internal audit department is small. So these were the 3 risks we found from the exhibit number 2. I copied them to my briefing note and I closed the window. Then we opened the notes from the meeting, the exhibit number 3 yesterday. And from the notes of the meeting, we found many risks. The first risk we found from the notes from the meeting was the international expansion, where there was an acquisition of $25 million. We found the materiality of that. Then we went down, we found another risk of a government grant. And then we went down, we found another risk of a legal case where the amount was $19 million. Then we found another risk, that was the changes in the fair value. Now, not necessarily every paragraph given in March, June 21 is about the audit risk, because simultaneously in the March, June 21 exam, you also have a business risk. So do you believe every situation given in all the exhibits is about an audit risk? No, because in all the information, there will be some information about the business risk as well. So not necessarily every information is giving you an audit risk. Some of that information can also give you business risk, right? So we read the exhibit number 3 in order. Then we opened the exhibit number 4, where we had the numbers. From the numbers, we found that inventory has increased a lot. And we did find the reason why inventory has increased a lot, right? Because there was some industrial action at the port, and the ports were closed down, and you could not ship the orders to your customer. I hope you remember that, right? And then another risk we found from the number was that the cash has depleted from the last year. So these were two very specific things we found from the number, that in terms of inventory piling up and the cash going down. Now, we didn't read the exhibit 5 yesterday. What was the reason of that? The reason of that why we didn't read the exhibit 5 when we were finding the audit risk, if you go back to the partner email, in the partner email, it is written, using exhibit 5, explain the ethical issues. So is the examiner telling us that the exhibit number 5 is only for a specific 10 marks requirement? So when you read the partner email, you got to know that the exhibit 5 is only for a 10 marks requirement. So you will only read the exhibit 5 if you are solving the D requirement. Is that clear? Right, now understand one thing very, very carefully, right? I hope you don't do this mistake in exam paper, because exhibit number 5 is given for a specific requirement, which is basically the requirement number D. So we didn't read the exhibit 5 when we were finding the audit risk. So we found audit risk from exhibit number 2, exhibit number 3, and exhibit number 4. But now try to understand something very important before I give you the very proper answer to this exam paper. Okay, I'm moving back to my Word file. Can all of you see my Word file for day 2 on screen? Okay, now listen to me and understand something very carefully. The objective today is to discuss audit risk, and we know the audit risk as well as the risk of material misstatement, because both are very similar. Now, in terms of this objective today, what you need to understand is that when you look at the requirement in the question number 1, one of the requirement in the question number 1 says you evaluate the audit risk of pale company of XYZ company, question mark. Now, one of the requirement in the past paper also asks you evaluate the audit risk of XYZ company, question mark. But before evaluate, examiner says using all the exhibits, comma, using all the exhibits, comma, evaluate the audit risk. Now, what is the difference here? Try to understand this very, very carefully. In the March June 21 question, in the March June 21 question, which we are solving, we got the requirement evaluate the audit risk, right? It is an example from the March June 21 question. So when the examiner says evaluate the audit risk, we read all the exhibits, for finding the audit risk minus the exhibit number 5, minus the exhibit number 5. Why? Minus the exhibit number 5 because it was meant for part D answer. It was meant for the part D answer for 10 marks. I hope you're getting my perspective here, right? So we read all the exhibit minus the exhibit number 5, because the exhibit number 5 was specifically for a D requirement. But if a question comes using all the exhibits, evaluate the audit risk, just like it came in the March 2020 exams. You can read that back at home. Question number 1. Now, in the March 2020 exams, question number 1, the examiner particularly tell you using all the exhibits. Now, in this case, even though the exhibit 5 is for the ethical issues, but because the examiner is saying using all the exhibit, so there might be a certain audit risk even in the exhibit 5, even though exhibit 5 is specifically made for ethical issues. But examiner is saying using all the exhibits. So in this case, you have to ensure that you read all the exhibits, including the exhibit 5, for example. Is that clear to all of you? Are you finding the difference between the first and the second approach? And are you all clear on that? Please do answer me. So if the examiner says evaluate the audit risk, but he's not telling you use all the exhibits, just like the question we are doing. In the question we are doing March, June 21, is the examiner saying use all the exhibits? Is the examiner saying use all the exhibits in the question we are doing? No. So when we look at this requirement, see over here, let me guide you. I hope you can see on your screen the partner email from the March, June 21 exams. Now, when you look at this partner email, in the first requirement, the partner says evaluate the business risk. In the second, the examiner says evaluate the audit risk. In the third, it says design the procedure. In the fourth, it says using exhibit 5, explain the ethical issues. Now, when you look at the requirement B is saying evaluate the audit risk. So examiner is not saying using all the exhibit evaluate the audit risk. So that means now when we are evaluating the audit risk, we know that the exhibit 5 is only for ethical issues. So we should evaluate the audit risk from the exhibit 1, exhibit 2, exhibit 3, and exhibit 4. We will not find any audit risk in exhibit 5 because examiner is not saying using all the exhibits. Is that clear to all of you, those who fail to understand this in the very first go? Right? Okay. Now, if the examiner says in the B requirement, using all the exhibit evaluate the audit risk, then will you use the exhibit 5 to find the audit risk as well? Is that clear to all of you? Because some students struggle to understand this at the first go. Are you all clear on this now? So will you read the examiner wording carefully using all the exhibits, or is the examiner directly telling you evaluate the audit risk? So in that case, you can skip the exhibit 5. But if the examiner says using all the exhibit, then you have to read the exhibit 5 as well. So why we skipped the exhibit 5 yesterday, why we didn't identify any risk from the exhibit 5 yesterday? Because exhibit 5 was made specifically for ethical issue, and examiner was not saying using all the exhibit, so we skipped the exhibit 5 knowing it's for a specific requirement. I hope you're all clear on that, right? And those who are still not clear, you can re-watch the recording of this day too. No, there will not be any audit risk in exhibit 5, Nikita, because examiner is not saying using all the exhibits, right? If there would have been an audit risk in exhibit 5 of this question, examiner must have written in the B requirement using all the exhibits evaluate the audit risk. So don't be worried about this, Nikita, that there will be an audit risk in exhibit 5. There will not be. If there would had been an audit risk in exhibit 5, then what would the examiner had said in the B requirement? Using all the exhibit, comma, evaluate the audit risk. I hope you're getting my point, Nikita, and all of you. So don't worry, right? There will be no audit risk in exhibit number 5 in this question. But if the examiner says using all the exhibit, will there be an audit risk in exhibit 5 then? Then you should read the exhibit 5, everyone. So is everyone getting that perspective? So please do read the March 2020 question number 1 back at home. Right? Just let me show you that for 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute, because I just want to reaffirm this thing and then don't want anyone to make any sort of blunder in the real exam. Just give me 1 minute. If I can open up the March 2020 question paper for you on the screen. Can you see the March 2020 question paper on your screen? And Sunir, that is for the business risk as well, right? For even the business risk, you will not read the exhibit 5. Okay, March 2020 question on your screen, right? Just scroll down this question paper and look at here. Is the examiner saying over here using all the exhibits? Can you see this word here? All exhibits evaluate the audit risk. Can you see this word here? Right? Now, is it binding on all of you to read all the exhibits? Even though, look at the B requirement. Look at the B requirement. In the B requirement, examiner is saying exhibit 4. So in the B requirement, you have to use the exhibit 4 only. And look at this C requirement. In the C requirement, examiner is saying using exhibit 5. Even though the examiner is saying that the answer of C is in the exhibit 5 and the answer of B is in the exhibit 4, can you minus them when you're identifying the audit risk? Or will you still read the exhibit 4 and exhibit 5 when even you're identifying the audit risk? Tell me. Will you read all the exhibits or will you minus exhibit 4 and 5 when you're identifying audit risk? Will you read all? So, are you getting my point, everyone, now? But in the March 21 question we are looking at, what is the difference? Over here, the examiner is saying evaluate the audit risk, but it's not saying using all the exhibits. Now can we skip the exhibit 5? Now can we skip the exhibit 5? Because we know the exhibit 5 here is for a specific requirement, right? So please be sure of this. This is very, very important, right? Okay, so we were on the word file, right? So there are two types of requirement: evaluate the audit risk and using all the exhibit, evaluate the audit risk. So in that case, you need to be sure how much content you are reading. Now understand the second thing quickly. The second thing, when you are reading the exhibits, when you are reading the exhibits for audit risk or for the risk of material misstatement, ensure you read them in a logical flow. That is from exhibit 1 to the last one. So go in the logical manner, right? Start from the exhibit 1, go to the exhibit 2, then go to the exhibit 3, then go to the exhibit 4, and then go to the exhibit 5 if needed. But reading the exhibits, ensure you read them in a logical flow from the first to the last one to identify the risk and copy paste the risk. Copy paste the risk you identify in your briefing note. In your briefing note. Now understand, suppose you read exhibit 1, you read exhibit 2, you read exhibit 3, you read exhibit 4, you read exhibit 5, and you identified so many audit risks. You copy pasted those in your briefing note. Now each risk you found, you copy pasted that in your briefing note, as I did yesterday. And I think we made a list of like 10 to 11 risks yesterday. You identify and you paste them in your briefing note. Now, once you have done that, what will you do next? Once you've copy pasted them, the next thing you have to do is, just give me 1 minute. The next thing you will do once you've copy pasted all the risk is that now think out of the risk copy pasted, how many will you write? How many will you write and which one and which ones? By looking at the number of marks available. Now, yesterday, I think there was a student in my webinar and he thought that 20 marks means that we should write 20 audit risk. No. Now, look at the situation here. Yesterday, when I was doing the question on the practice platform with all of you, and let me show you my briefing note. See how many risks we found at the end of the class in the briefing note. Can you see this list of briefing note risks we found yesterday? 1 to 10, all of them. Can you see this on your screen? 1 to 10 risks we found yesterday on day 1, right? And how much is the marks available to us? If you look at the partner email for the audit risk, we just had 20 marks. So now you have copy pasted 10 risk yesterday. How now? Sorry, in the point number 2, sorry for that. Now think out. Now think Out of the risk copy pasted, how many will you write and which one by looking at the number of marks available? Now, suppose you have 20 marks. You have 20 marks for question number 1B in the March June 21 exams, and you identified 10 risk yesterday on day 1. Yesterday on day 1. So, how many will you write? And which ones? And which ones? Right? Now, how would you get the answer to this? Hamza, I'm coming back to your question, right? I need to solve that. I was the one who guided you yesterday that you need to prioritize risk. You need to find significant risk. So definitely when I'll give you the answer, I will be solving in that manner, right? So nothing to worry about. Is everyone clear till the point number 3? Suppose you have 20 marks for question number 1B in March 2021 exams. You identified 10 risks yesterday on day 1. So how many risks will you write and which ones? How would you know that? Number 1, ensure you know the marking scheme very well for audit risk and for the risk of material misstatement. I have guided the marking scheme in every webinar I have conducted. That is the last webinar, the June 21, the previous to that. So I've been on that in every webinar. So please ensure you look at the marking scheme. But just to ensure you know the updated marking scheme, let's see what is the source of marking scheme. I hope all of you know the source of marking scheme for audit risk and for the risk of material misstatement. The source of the marking scheme lies in the answer booklet. Let me show you that. Can you see the answer booklet in front of your screen now for the March 2021 exams? Sample marking guide. This is the answer booklet, right? You are all very familiar with. Let me show you the first page of this and all of you will realize. See how many times you download this document from the website, all of you. How many times you download answers from ACC website and you're so very happy downloading answers, right? As if you got success. Now, this document answers. See, these are answers for which attempt? These are answers for March, June 21, the one we are solving. Now, when you download these answers, go to the last 3 pages of the answer. Go to the last 3 pages of the answers and you will find the marking scheme. Can you find the marking scheme over here? Can you see that on your screen, everyone? Can you see this? Green March, June 21 sample marking scheme. Right. Now, leave aside the business risk marking scheme. You can watch my previous webinar and you can read it from here. Look at the marking scheme for audit risk here. And the same is the marking scheme for risk of material misstatement. Now, you cannot say, how would I know the marking scheme sitting in the exam hall? You should know the marking scheme by evaluating the marking scheme from the latest paper available by ACCA when you enter the exam hall. Now, see what is the examiner telling us here. This is the marking scheme. I'm just copying the marking scheme from here, Control C, and I'm taking this marking scheme on my Word file for your understanding. So you know how many risks will you be writing. See, I copied the marking scheme over here. Just give me 1 minute so I can set it up for you and we can do a proper analysis of the marking scheme. Okay, just 1 minute. Let me format this for you in a proper font. Okay, I hope you can see the marking scheme. Let's read that carefully and be with me, right? Examiner is saying up to 3 marks for each audit risk evaluated. So examiner is saying for each audit risk you evaluate, you will get up to 3 marks unless otherwise indicated. So if the examiner is otherwise indicating that, where will he indicate? He will indicate in the marking scheme. Now you will see in the marking scheme, if I take you back to the marking scheme, Okay. In the marking scheme, can you see somewhere examiner has indicated 2 marks, 2 marks? Can you see that? Now, how would you know in the exam paper that where will I get 3 marks, where will I get 2 marks? Can all of you see this marking scheme in front of your screen? That suppose new client, in front of the new client, examiner has written up to 2 marks. Corporate governance, 2 marks. We found the internal audit department problem yesterday, right? 2 marks. New audit client, 2 marks. So examiner is telling us up to 3 marks for each audit risk, unless otherwise indicated. Marks may be awarded for other relevant risk not included in the marking guide. See this. This is so important for all of you. Marks may be awarded for other relevant risk not included in the marking guide. So when you look at the marking guide here, suppose you found a risk which is not here in the marking guide. See, examiner has found the risk in new client, corporate governance, pressure on result, government grant, legal case, changes in fair value, inventory, going concern. We almost find identical risk yesterday. But suppose you find a risk which is not given in the list here. Is the examiner saying you can still get marks? Is the examiner saying you can still get marks if it is not here? So marks may be awarded for risk not included in the marking guide. So don't be worried about it, provided you explain them in a proper manner. Now, that means up to 3 marks is available for a risk unless otherwise indicated. Now, does that mean there are 2 types of risk? 2 types of risk. One with 3 marks and one with 2 marks. Is that sure from the first bullet? Up to 3 marks unless otherwise indicated. So does that mean as a student you should know there is one with a 3 marks, there is one with a 2 marks. So should you know which risk will give you 3 marks in the exam paper and which risk will give you 2 marks in the exam paper? So that's number 1, right? That's number 1. I'll be coming to it. Wait. Next, materiality calculation should be awarded 1 mark each to a maximum of 3. So examiner is saying if you do the materiality calculation, examiner will give you 1 mark for a materiality calculation. Up to how many marks? Maximum 3. So how many materiality calculations can be performed by a student in maximum? 3. If you perform 5 materiality calculations, how many marks will you get still? 5 or 3? Even though for every materiality calculation you will get 1 mark, but is there a cap here? Is there a capping? Maximum 3. So if you found 5 materialities, will you get 5 marks? No, you will get 3 marks. So the marks for materiality are capped up to 3. So please remember that this is very important. This is very important. Should you calculate materialities more than 3 in exam paper? The answer to that question is yes, even though you will not get marks for it. But because you are a manager in the AAA paper and you are solving the question number 1, it is a professional skill that you calculate materiality in the AAA paper wherever possible, even though the marks are restricted up to 3 in the question number 1 only. So will you perform materiality in the question number 1 even beyond 3? The answer to that is yes, even though you are not getting marks. As a student, you all love to write more. You say, okay, what if examiner is saying 5 marks and we write more than 5 points? You love this, right? So when I tell you calculate materiality for every possible situation, you say why? So you love to write more, right? But materiality is such an important professional behavior of a manager which you cannot skip in the question number 1, even though the marks are restricted up to 3. Will you continue to find materialities where possible in the exam paper? See, now how many materialities we found yesterday when we were solving the question? Let's go back to my briefing note. In my briefing note yesterday, how many materialities have we found? Can you see this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many materialities we found yesterday? So we calculated 5 materialities, but how many marks will we get for it? 3. But should we stop after we calculated 3 materialities or should we calculate all of them? Because that will help us decide which of them are more significant risk. Now, when we calculated all the 5 materialities, did it help us identify which are the significant ones? If we calculate all, will it help us identify the more significant ones? But if we don't calculate all, how would we know which are significant ones? So will that help us to rank the risk according to their materiality if we find all the materialities? And then we can write the top 3, the top 4 in the answer. Right? So are you getting my perspective to find materialities wherever possible, even though the marks are restricted up to 3? Is that clear to all of you? So this is very important, right? So find all materialities where possible, even though marks are restricted to 3, because this will help you to prioritize risk or find significant risk. As I think Hamza Khan was asking a question continuously in the last 10 minutes. So if you don't find materiality for all situations, how will you prioritize them? How will you know which is the more important one? So should you find all materialities in the question as we did yesterday? Are you getting this perspective, everyone? Right? Okay. Last, in addition, is the examiner saying this is in addition? Is it something extra examiner will give you in addition to what? In addition to up to 3 marks. Up to 3 marks for each risk, up to 2 marks for each risk. Examiner is saying in addition, half a mark for each relevant trend or half a mark for each relevant calculation which form part of the risk explanation. So examiner is saying, I'll give you extra half a mark for any trend. I will give you a half a mark for any relevant calculation which form part of the risk explanation. But if it doesn't form part of the risk explanation, then you will not get this extra half a mark. But extra half a mark for the relevant trend or the calculation is up to how many marks? Maximum 2. So how many relevant trends or calculations can you find maximum in one question? If there is an extra half a mark for a relevant trend or calculation, how many maximum trends or calculations can you find as part of your answer? Maximum 4. Is everyone clear on that? Now look at the marking scheme. Understand this very, very carefully. There are 2 types of risk marking scheme. One which gives you 3 marks and one which gives you 2 marks. Now listen to me carefully and just hold your question and answer session for 5 minutes. Now there could be one risk which gives you 3 marks and there could be one risk in exam which gives you 2 marks, because the examiner is saying there is a possibility. Now the risk which gives you 3 marks is the one which involve the 4-step process given by examiner in the exam technique article part 2. Now examiner in the exam technique article part 2 has given students a 4-step process to write an answer. Involves the 4-step process given by the examiner in the exam technique article part 2. So if you use that 4-step process, that 4-step process will give you 3 marks in exam. But if that 4-step process is not involved, then that will give you 2 marks. If the 4-step process is not involved or some of the steps are missing, then you will get 2 marks per risk. Can risk be less than 2 marks? No. So the lowest marks possible for a risk is 2 and the maximum marks possible for a risk is 3. So if the 4-step process is not involved or some of the steps are missing, then you will get 2 marks per risk. But if the 4-step process is involved, then you will get 3 marks. So 3 marks and 2 marks. Now what is the 4-step process? How do you know the 4-step process? Because I've been guiding on this every time I conduct a webinar. If you forgot that, Let's rewind that. The 4-step process for writing an audit risk and a risk of material misstatement, which will fetch you 3 marks. Now, last thing, if you identify a trend or if you identify a calculation, that will give you an extra half a mark. Suppose you are writing a 3-mark risk, involves the 4-step process, and you get a 3 marks. But in that 3-mark risk, you identify a trend or a calculation which is used as part of risk evaluation. Will that give you an extra half a mark here? Will that give you an extra half a mark here? So can that 3 marks become 3.5 marks, everyone? So if you involve the 4-step process, definitely you'll get 3. But if that 4-step process has a calculation, or if that 4-step process has a relevant trend, will that give you extra half a mark? Hamza, you're reading it wrong. It says up to 3 marks, and then the examiner says in addition. So in addition means something extra, or is it part of the 3 marks? That's a mistake, Hamza. You must be doing even in reading the requirements of the exam paper. Reading something is very important, right? Reading something is very important. Examiner is saying in addition. So is that something extra, everyone, apart from Hamza? Is that something extra you will be getting apart from 3? Are you clear, everyone? Okay. So when you are writing a 2 marks risk, and when you are writing a 2 marks risk, you identify a trend or a calculation, will that 2 mark risk become 2.5 mark risk? Even? So there can be a 3 mark risk, there can be a 3.5 mark risk, there can be a 2 mark risk, there can be 2.5 mark risk. Is that clear? So now tell me, for a 20 marks answer, how many risks are we writing? 20 divided by 2 is equal to 10 risk. Is that more? Are we writing more? Are we writing more? The answer to this question is what? Yes or no? Are we writing more? Yes, because we just divided 20 with 2. Even though there might be 20, if you take the average, 3, 3.5, 2, 2.5, if you take the average and we divide 20 with the average, we'll exactly know how much to write. So there can be a 3 mark risk, there can be a 2 mark risk. So 3 and 2 is how much? 5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So you can divide 20 with an average marks, like 2.5 marks. How many risks to write then? 20 divided by 2. Can someone give me the answer? 20 divided by 2.5. 8 risk. I think 8 risk is good enough to write for a 20 marks answer, because some of them will be worth 3, some of them will be worth 2, some of them will be worth 2.5. But if you're writing 10 risk for a 20 marks answer, that's too much. If you're writing more than 10, that's waste of time. But I think a good enough number of risks to write for a 20 marks answer, if you take the average of 3 and 2, I think that's like 8 audit risk, and that's an excellent answer, because some of them would be 3 marks, some of them will be 2 marks. Is that clear to all of you? Should we now look at the 4-step process? How much is the 4-step process? Okay, let's look at the 4-step process. Now, this 4-step process is given in the examiner article, and just to save my time, I copied this before the start of the session, so we can save time in the session today. And just to give you the 4-step process, just give me 1 minute. If I can reduce the font size and bring it on the screen in front of you, just 1 minute. Okay, can you see this 4-step process in front of your screen, everyone? I've taken it from the examiner article. I've put the hyperlink as well, right? I put the hyperlink of the article. That's the exam technique article part 2, which is available with you as part of the resources for day 1. In that article, examiner has described us how to use the 4-step process. See this. Examiner says when describing RoMM, which is part of the audit risk as well. An effective approach is to use the following steps, to construct your answer. This is word by word examiner. Following steps to construct your answer. Number one, calculate and conclude on the materiality of the issue where possible. So the first step is calculate and conclude on the materiality. Is it possible to find materiality for every situation in the exam paper? Is it possible to find materiality for every situation in the exam paper? No. So where possible, calculate and conclude on the materiality where possible. Where possible. And how many marks we get for a materiality calculation? Half a mark or 1 mark? 1 mark, right? So when you calculate and conclude on the materiality, straight away you get 1 out of the 3 marks. Then second, examiner is saying, briefly describe the relevant financial reporting requirement. So that means briefly describe the accounting treatment. So you need to briefly describe the accounting treatment. So if you briefly describe the accounting treatment, you will fetch more marks. Note, no credit is awarded for the name and the number of the accounting treatment. This is very, very important for all of you. You love to write this. In exam, you say, oh, examiner answers have the name and number, we'll write it. Examiner is herself telling you in her article that there is no credit for the award of the names and numbers you write. Examiner answers are tutorial guidance. How long will you get impressed with examiner answers? I think you should come out of the habit of getting impressed with the examiner answer. For you, there is only one source of passing the AAA paper, and that is the examiner answer. You don't read the technique articles. You don't read the examiner reports. You don't even bother to read the examiner marking scheme. You only have 1 point solution of passing the AAA paper, which is examiner answer. If you try to find your success only in reading the examiner answers, that is absolutely wrong, because examiner answers have extra material, extra stuff. And if you get impressed with that, and if you start doing that, you will not even complete the 50% of your paper in the actual exam environment. So is the examiner happy with writing the name and numbers? Will he give you some extra marks for that? Examiner is saying, no, I will not give you any extra marks for that. So it's just about writing the accounting treatment. And see this briefly. Can you all see this word briefly? Are we elaborating the accounting treatment on like half a page? Examiner is saying briefly describe the accounting treatment. I'll just tell you how brief it is to be in exam paper. Right? I hope you can all hear me, right? Okay, that's great if you can all hear me. So you need to describe the accounting treatment briefly, not significantly. I'll be telling you how to do that. So the first step is to calculate the materiality. The second step is to discuss the accounting treatment. The third step is to tell the risk in the scenario. What is the risk in the scenario to the accounting? Now, yesterday, we came across several accounting treatments like the government grant, like the legal case. In the legal case, we need to apply the IAS 37. In the government grant, we need to apply the IAS 20. Was it possible to calculate the materiality of a legal case? Yes. Was it possible to calculate the materiality of the government grant? Yes. Was there an accounting treatment of the government grant? Yes, IAS 20. Was there an accounting treatment of the legal case? Yes, IAS 37. Relate the risk in the scenario to the accounting treatment. Relate the risk in the scenario to the accounting treatment. Now, what can be risk in the accounting treatment? If you are all accountants, right? Risk in the accounting treatments can be what? Either there could be a risk of recognition, that you have recognized something wrongly, or there could be a risk of classification, that you've classified something wrongly, or there could be a risk of presentation, you presented something wrongly, or there could be a risk of disclosure, that you have not given a disclosure of something. There could be a risk of valuation. Full stop. So when you look at the accounting standards, some of the accounting standards focus on recognition, some focus on classification, some focus on presentation, some focus on disclosure, some focus on valuation. Now, if you're looking at a government grant, what is the risk in the government grant? The risk in the government grant is normally the management recognize the grant as an income when they should recognize the grant as a deferred income over a period of time. But if you immediately record the grant as an income, that's wrong, because the grant is not for the grant is for a certain period of time, and the grant should be spread over time. I hope you're getting my perspective here. What is the risk in legal case? The risk in legal case is that the provision is not recognized. So that is the risk of recognition. Or if you want to disclose a contingent liability, there is a risk that you've not given a disclosure. So you need to tell examiner what is the risk in the scenario. So the risk can be of recognition, the risk can be of classification, the risk can be of presentation, the risk can be of disclosure, and the risk can be of valuation. But if a student failed to pick up the risk, you're losing marks. And after you tell the risk, you need to tell examiner the impact. What is the impact of the risk? What is the impact of the risk you identified above on the financial statement? Now, the impact of the risk on the financial statement can be understatement or overstatement, or the financial statements could be materially misstated. Try to understand this. Take an example here, right? Take an example here quickly. Just 1 minute. If it says the grant is recognized as income in the grant is recognized in the income immediately when the grant was for 3 years. The grant is recognized as income immediately even though the grant was given to you for 3 years. Now, if you are writing and you for example, you know the grant amount is $10 million, for example, and you know that the grant amount is $10 million, and you also know that the total assets of the company is like $200 million, or the total asset of the company is $100 million, for example, right? And you're converting this to your answer using the 4-step process. How would you write your answer? You will start writing your answer firstly with that the grant received from the government is $10 million, which is how much percentage of the total assets? Can anyone find that out quickly? Which is 10% of the total assets, hence material to the financial statements. Have I done the first step of the examiner, everyone? Then the next step, briefly describe the accounting treatment. Now, when I'm briefly describing the accounting treatment, I will tell government grant are recognized in the profit or loss on a systematic basis over the period in which the entity recognizes expenses for the related cost for which the grant are intended to compensate. So you got the grant for a certain purpose, right? So you should recognize the grant in the P&L on a systematic basis over the period in which the entity recognized the expense for the related cost for which the grant intends to compensate. So you wrote briefly describe the accounting treatment. Have I done the step number 2 of the examiner? Have I wrote the brief accounting treatment for the grant, how to recognize it, everyone? Okay, third step, relate the risk. Has the company recognized the grant immediately? Have they done something wrong? So what's the risk? The risk is, as the grant income is immediately recognized in full, thus grant income is wrongly The grant income is wrongly recognized. The grant income is wrongly recognized. The grant income is wrongly recognized. So is that the risk? Wrongly recognized, full stop. And after that, what's the impact? Thus, the thus due to wrong recognition, income is overstated or profit is overstated. Profit is overstated, and deferred income or your liability is understated. Have I done the 4 steps? Tell me, and see the length of the answer. Did I mention IS 20, the name? Did I mention the title of IS 20? Look at this. Now, is it a 3-mark statement here? Because examiner is saying if you follow a 4-step process, I'll reward you 3. Is that clear? But if the grant amount is not given, suppose you look at this situation number 2 here, Control C, I put it down over here, Control V. Grant is recognized as income immediately when the grant was for 3 years, and examiner is not telling us the amount of the grant in the case study. Now, when you're writing the answer, what will you tell examiner? You will tell examiner that the grant is to be recognized on a systematic basis. As grant is recognized immediately, this is under and this is overstated, right? You will skip the first line of materiality. Am I right? Because you've skipped the 1 step of the 3-step model, will you get 3 marks in the second situation or will you get 2 marks? Right? So the second situation becomes 2 marks. The first situation becomes 3 marks. So is it possible to find materiality every possible time? So are you getting the practical steps of the 4-step model here, everyone? Now look at something else. The company has a small internal audit department. Did we found this as an issue yesterday in the March-June 21 exams? The company has a small internal audit department which reports to the finance director, which reports to the CFO, right? Now, when you find this as an example from the March 21 exam yesterday, the company has a small internal audit department. Is it a 3-mark statement? Is it a 2-mark statement? Do you have materiality? Do you have accounting treatments here? So is it by default a 2-mark statement? Yes. Okay. Look at the other one. It is a new audit client. New audit client. Do we have an accounting treatment? Do we have a materiality here? So is it a 2-mark statement? It is a 2-mark statement, right? But there were so many situations in yesterday class or webinar which had 3 marks because we had materialities and we had accounting treatments. Is everyone clear with this? So please ensure that you know the marking scheme very well. When will you fetch 3 marks and when will you fetch 2 marks? Now, it is very, very important that whenever you write a risk, please distinguish between 2 things. Income is wrongly recognized risk. Income is wrongly recognized risk, yellow. And the profit is overstated and the deferred income is understated is the impact. Let me put the impact in green. Look at the yellow and look at the green. A lot of time the student fail to recognize the difference between a risk and an impact, and they believe it's one of the same thing. Risk and impact are 2 different things here, right? So you need to identify the risk first and then you need to tell what's the impact. Right? Is everyone clear with this? So is everyone clear between the bifurcation of a risk and an impact? So do you write the risk first, then you write the impact? Okay, that's great. Thank you. So I think you learned the marking schemes, right? Now let me give you one illustration of how you fetch extra half a mark, when you are writing something of a calculation or something of a relevant trend, right? Let me give you that perspective as well. Right? Examiner is telling in the last point here, in journal there will be credit available for each of these process, and you should recall this approach every time you tackle a question on ROM in exam paper. See, examiner is saying every time you get a question on ROM or audit risk, you should remember the process and you should write your answer in the process, because every step in the process has marks. Is that clear to all of you? Can we do one last example from the March-June 21 paper? And there are lots of questions you people are asking. So what I will do is, in the last 15 minutes, I'll stop and I'll just do a Q&A session with you. So if any of your question was worthy and I just overlook it because I'm busy in my Word file, so I'll give you an opportunity that it gets responded in the webinar. So just hold your Q&As and keep it for the last 15 minutes, right? And just focus on telling the reply to my questions. Are you clear with the 4-step process? Are you clear with this last line written by the examiner, that you need to write your answer in this process form? Okay, that's great. Now, few of the last things before we exit from this. Let me take you back to my briefing note. Can you all of you see the briefing note in front of your screen? Okay. Okay, we found some risk yesterday. PALE is a new audit client and the management is planning to achieve a stock market listing within the next 2 years. Okay, this is a good point. Management is planning to achieve a stock market listing within the next 2 years. How many marks will you fetch for this? How many marks will you fetch for this? 2. Okay, I think we can fetch 2.5 marks. Let's see how. Let's see how we can fetch 2.5 marks here. Let me give you another example. March, June 21. You will be amazed how we get 2.5 marks for the statement. 2.5 marks statement. See how. I took an example from the March June 21 exams. Management team is planning to achieve a stock market listing in the next 2 years, right? Now, student, write this risk in the exam paper. See how. Management team is planning for PALE to achieve a stock market listing. Okay, stock market listing. I'll take this as my heading. Control C. I'll bring it here. Stock market listing. And under the stock market listing, I'll write my answer. PALE company is planning to achieve a stock market listing in the next 2 years, which increases the risk of management bias in manipulating results to show better performance to the potential investors, and to fetch a good share prices. Thus, the financial statements could be materially misstated, right? I cannot find an under and overstatement here. Generally, I'm saying the financials could be materially misstated. So if it is not possible in the exam to find the over and under, in the case of the government grant, we found over and under because that was a debit and a credit. But generally, when there is a risk of management bias, or generally when there is a small internal audit department, we cannot identify the under and overstatement. So we say the financials could be materially misstated. I hope you're getting my point, right? So is this statement worthy of 2 marks? Is there any accounting treatment here? Is there any materialities here? No, but this statement will give me 2 marks. But there is a clever student in the March June 21 who said, no, I can get 2.5 marks. He go back to the March June 21 exams and he think there is a risk of management bias. And he go to the exhibit number 4 where the numbers are given. And in the exhibit number 4, the numbers are given. He look at this He used the relevant trend already given by the examiner. The profit before tax has increased by 30%. Can you all see that? The profit before tax has increased by 30%. That calculation is shown by the examiner. Profit before tax has increased by 30%. Does that indicate that the company has already started fabricating the financial statements? Profit before tax has increased by 30%. So the student go back and write over here, full stop, the profit before tax for the current year has already increased by 30% over the last year. Indicates indicates such risk exists. Have you connected that 30% with the risk you're talking about? The profit before tax for the current year has already increased by 30% over the last year. Indicate such risk exists. Which risk? Risk of management bias. So have you used the percentage as part of your answer, as part of supporting your answer, or you just use the percentage in isolation, or have you connected this percentage with the risk? Right? So you will get a 0.5 marks for using that percentage, and this statement is now worth 2.5 marks. I hope you're getting some sense out of this last 30 minutes. When to fetch 2.5 marks, when to fetch 3, when to fetch 3.5, and something like that. And I hope you got a sense of examiner 4-step model, right? So we link profit because when you are obtaining a stock market listing, the better parameter of manipulation is profit. So even though your revenues are changing in a different direction, but the bottom line is the critical success factor here, right? So you're manipulating your bottom line in a very interesting manner. So that's very important, right? Now, few of the last things, which is very, very important to all of you. Look at this. Can you see this paragraph from the Examiner article on your screen? From the same article which I am recommending all of you, right? Look at this paragraph. Examiner is saying, when you are asked to evaluate the audit risk in an exam, much of your answer would be the same as for the requirement asking for the risk of material misstatement. So if you are writing your audit risk answer, examiner is saying much of your answer will be the same as for the requirement asking for the risk of material misstatement, as it formed the major part of audit risk. So a lot of times students ask me that there is no difference between an audit risk answer and the risk of material misstatement answer. Why will there be a difference? Because if you look at a formula of an audit risk, the formula of an audit risk is the risk of material misstatement multiplied by the detection risk. So do you appreciate, all of you, that the risk of material misstatement can be a separate requirement in the exam paper? Or you can get a question on audit risk in the exam paper. But do you appreciate that the major part of audit risk is also a risk of material misstatement, right? So when you're writing an audit risk answer, does it seem you're writing a risk of material misstatement answer, everyone? But then the examiner says the difference. What is the difference? The difference here is that detection risk is now also relevant. So when you're writing an audit risk answer, detection risk is now also relevant. So when you're writing the answer for audit risk, detection risk is also now relevant. That's important. Examples of detection risk could include a recent appointment as the auditor, inexperience in the client new market, or a time pressure for audit. So examiner is giving you some examples here which could translate into a detection risk. Now, one of the example we are finding here in the March-June 21 question is a new audit client. So when you look at this example, new audit client, can you translate this new audit client into a detection risk because of the less knowledge of the client business? It's the first year. It's the first year audit, right? So can you convert the new audit client is equal to less knowledge of the client, less knowledge of client business is equal to detection risk being high, something like that, and fetch 2 marks by writing a proper statement. So when you're writing an audit risk answer, please ensure that in the audit risk answer, you should find a situation from the exam paper which gives rise to detection risk, because that's the only difference between between writing an audit risk answer and a RoMM answer. Now, how many detection risks are there in an audit risk case study? To me, only one. I've never seen more than one detection risk in any audit risk case study in the past papers. So there could be just one, and most of the time it is the new audit client. New audit client. The new audit client is the only detection risk example your examiner has used over long periods of the AAA paper. Is that clear, everyone? So do you appreciate the difference between audit risk and RoMM, the detection risk, and are you all clear on detection risk? Okay, the last thing. This is very, very important. Listen to me very carefully and please hold your Q&A session. Hold your Q&A session for just 2 minutes and listen to this very, very carefully. This is the last paragraph of the examiner article, and I just want to ensure that you read this very carefully because this can change your perspective of passing the AAA paper. Listen to this. Very important note. Note, I've taken this from the examiner article. Note that RoMM is also relevant for matters and evidence question. RoMM is also relevant for a matters and evidence question where the structure of the answer in those questions may be broader, but the basic thought process is similar. Look at this line. Examiner is saying RoMM is also relevant for the matters and evidence question where the structure of the answer in those questions may be broader, but the basic thought process is similar. Look at this. The basic thought process is similar. Which basic thought process? The 4-step model. This will be addressed further in a separate article on accounting issues for advanced audit and assurance. So examiner is saying I will be writing a separate article on this, which is basically the part 3. So if you want to read the part 3 article, you can read the part 3 article. We're currently looking at the part 2. So I hope you've seen the past papers, all of you. And in the past paper, you get a question on evidence. And the question on evidence asks you matters and evidence. Let me put that with you. A question in the past paper asks you comment on the matters, comma, and explain the audit evidence you should expect to find in the review of the working paper file. In the review of working paper file. I've covered this so many times in my previous webinar, and those of you who are repeating the AAA paper or those of you who are studying very well for the AAA paper, giving the first attempt, you must have seen this question in the past papers. Tell me, have you seen this question in the past paper? Comment on the matter and explain the evidence you should expect to find in the working paper file. Have you seen this question in the past paper? Is that a very regular question of the past paper? Does it come very often? Matters and evidence? And is the examiner saying the approach to writing an answer is very similar to that of a RoMM? So now understand this quickly and we wrap up this topic today. Examiner says comment on the meta. Now in a question on evidence, the matter is an accounting matter every time. Just like a risk question, right? Just like a risk question, the matter is accounting. Same is the case with evidence. In a question on evidence, the matter is an accounting matter. So when the examiner says comment on the matter, examiner is saying the basic thought process is the same as of RoMM. So when the examiner says comment on the matter and the matter relates to an accounting issue, so the very first comment is the comment on materiality. The second comment is the comment on accounting treatment, just like the RoMM answer. See, the third comment is the comment on the risk and the impact on the financial statements. And the same marking scheme. You comment on the materiality, you get 1 mark in the question on evidence. You comment on the accounting treatment, you get 1 mark and you comment on the risk and impact together, and you get 1 mark for that. Absolutely. Same marking scheme, same way of writing answer. So look at this. Just read this line again, please, all of you. From here to here, just read this line, please. I'm giving you 1 minute. Read this line I highlighted above here. Read this line very carefully and tell me, have you understood this? So if you know how to write a ROM answer, if you know how to write a ROM answer and a question comes on comment on the matter and explain the evidence, will you be able to comment on the matters in the same way you comment, in the same way you write a ROM answer? So if you know how to write ROM, can you write an audit risk answer? If you know how to write ROM, can you write the answer for comment on the matters? So how much paper can you control? How much paper can you control if you know how to write the ROM answer with a 4-step model? Is that clear? So if you know how to write a ROM answer, 4-step model, if you know how to write a ROM answer using a 4-step model, can 4-step model, can you use the same in writing the audit risk answer and the same in writing comment on the matters in an evidence question, right? So is that something interesting you should know? So please ensure that when you solve a ROM question, be excellent on the 4 steps. And if you are excellent on the 4 step, you can really control the AAA paper very, very well. Now just let me show you one thing. In the same exam paper we are in, can you see the exam paper back on screen, March 21 on your screen? Right? We were on the question number 1. I'm just going to the next window. Question number, section B. In the section B, leave aside the question number 2, come to the question number 3. Can you all see this question in front of your screen? If I just show you the requirement, this is question number 3 of the recent paper, and just want to show you the requirement here. Can you see this requirement in the latest paper? Look at this requirement here. Using the information in Exhibit 1, comment on the matters to be considered and explain the evidence you should expect to find. See this? So when the examiner asks you comment on the matter, so the first comment on the matter you will do is the materiality comment, then the second is the treatment comment, then the third is the risk comment, and the fourth is the impact comment. How many marks will you fetch for that? Straight away, 3 marks. Now look at this 3 situations given to you in the exam paper. Railway operating license and going concern, purchase customer list, and chairman statement. There are 3 issues here. So in these 3 issues, you need to comment on the matters and then you need to find the evidence. So out of the 7 marks here, you can easily allocate 3 marks to the comment on matters and the remaining 4 marks can be allocated to writing evidence. In the purchase customer list, you can use 3 marks for commenting on the matters and you can use the 5 marks for explaining the evidence. Then in the chairman statement, you can utilize 3 marks for comment on the matter and you can utilize the 2 marks for writing the evidence. So is that clear to all of you? So this is a very regular question and I've covered these questions in my previous webinars. So if you watch my 3 previous webinars, you will come across a practice session where I've done a question on comment on the matters and explain the evidence, because that is a regular feature of the past paper. But is everyone clear with the breakdown of the terminology comment on the matters? Is that same as you do a ROM answer? Everyone? So have this first 1.5 hour been beneficial to you in terms of getting guidance, not just on ROM and the 4-step model, marking scheme, 3 marks, 2 marks, 2.5 marks, How many marks are there for materiality? 3. I hope you got lots of perspective. So you should rewatch this webinar again after it gets over today, so that if you missed something or you forgot something, you can be on track for that. So this is the Word file. I will be sharing this with you after the session ends today, but I hope you got some perspective into the marking scheme and how you go about it. I hope you're all very clear that you should read the question number 1 in a logical manner, find the audit risk, copy paste the audit risk, try to use a rough working in the briefing note, and when you end the answer, delete the rough working. And the rough working will help you, because the rough working will help you not to open a scratch pad. And then you can delete the rough working when you finish up the briefing note. How you structure a briefing note, how many marks you get for the briefing note, you can watch my previous webinars, because in my previous webinars, I've been very regular on telling you the briefing note format, marks. So if you think you want to cover that and you are a new student, you can watch my previous webinars. Please ensure that on the day 1 yesterday, I did mention all of you to watch some of my previous webinars, right? Please do watch them. And even yesterday, when I started my discussion on audit risk, I did recommended you to watch some of my previous webinars on audit risk and business risk and RoMM. I hope you will follow them. They're all available on my YouTube channel. So this is the end for the day 1 agenda, right? On the same basis, please ensure you do the September-December 20 question number 1 as your self-practice. Whatever you have learned yesterday and today, try to implement that on the September-December 20 question, and see if you can find the risk, and then think about how many risks you should write. Prioritize the risk in terms of materiality, where the materiality is very important. Try to write that risk as important risk. So materiality will help you with significant risk, with prioritized risk, which to write first and which to write second. But I would prefer that you go in a top-down manner. In the top-down manner, read the question, identify the risk, and then think about which 8, which 9, which 10 risk will you be writing as per the marking scheme. Is that clear to all of you? So right after the break, we'll be starting with, this is my presentation for audit risk and risk of material misstatement. You can read that on your own. I've covered every aspect of it in my session today, but this is the marking schemes, even the marking scheme for analytical procedures, which have come in a couple of past papers. I've covered analytical procedures in the marking scheme in my June 21 webinar. So if you want to see how to apply the analytical procedures and how to gain marks on analytical procedure when a question asks for it, do watch my June 21 webinar, because the question I choose this time didn't involve the analytical procedure, because I was choosing the latest paper. So last time I did a question on analytical procedure in the last webinar. So you can follow that for the marking scheme, because the marking scheme for analytical procedure has not changed from the last exam sitting. So right after the break, we'll start with the day 2 agenda, which is ethical, professional, and quality control issues. And we look into the question number 2 of the recent paper. Now, please appreciate this, that for this webinar, I am trying my best that we do the recent paper, March, June 21 as a whole, and also the September, December 20 paper. So this is an encouragement from the tutor that try to spend time on recent papers rather than a lot of time the students spend time on very old papers. The more recent paper you do, the better exam rigor you will be understanding. Is that clear to all of you? So please drop a feedback of the first 90 minutes quickly. How was the session today, and has it been productive in terms of learnings and findings in terms of your weaknesses? Okay, now if there was a question which was not answered, I'll give you 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to do so. And then you have the WhatsApp group, right? And on the WhatsApp group, you can post those questions. So you have loads and loads of opportunities to be interactive with the tutor. Okay, we're now taking a break for 15 minutes. We'll resume back at 10:15 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. Is that clear, carefully noted by all of you? So we have a 15 minutes break. It's 10 o'clock in Pakistan, 10 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. So we'll resume in 15 minutes at 10:15 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, right? Let me write that in the chat box. Break till 10:15 p.m. So be back into the classroom in this webinar at 10:15. Have you got the break time in your chat box? Please confirm that. Okay, that's great. So I'm just muting myself and I'll come back in 15 minutes. Thank you so much for being part of the session. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Just confirm me, all of you can hear me because we're just a minute away from the schedule end of the break time. But I want to take this opportunity just to confirm that my voice is getting through to all of you loud and clear. Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. So we're just few seconds away from the start of the live session again, which will be the last 75 minutes of the day 2. And I hope you can all see the presentation in front of you as a screen sharing, which says ethical, professional, and quality control issues. Okay, that's great. So it's time now. Okay, let's resume back. So welcome back again. We are back from the break, day 2 of the September 21 webinar for Advanced Audit and Assurance. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor, and we are now looking into a new topic. Before the break, we were looking at the continuation of the day 1, where the focus was on audit risk and risk of material misstatement, and I hope you've learned a lot from it. We're now focusing on the second topic, ethical, professional, and quality control issues, and a look inside the question number 2 of the 2 recent papers, one being the September-December 20 paper, and one being the March and June 21 paper. Now, the agenda for the day 2. There are plenty of articles which are coming on the left-hand side of your screen, which are available as part of the handout sections. Exam Technique Article Part 1. I hope you start to realize the importance of exam technique articles. Just like in the risk topic, we got to know the 4-step approach, that is how to write an answer. And that was my focus yesterday on day 1 as well, that the exam technique articles are the best source of how you write an answer. Now, right over here, you have another exam technique article which will tell you how you write a good ethics answer. Now, examiner has written the exam technique articles on important areas of the AAA paper, on reporting, on risk, on ethics, on accounting issues, and on audit procedure. And I hope if someone of you has not read it, you will read it. Then there is another article which is audit quality, a perpetual current issue, which is the next one here. This is must to read if you want to be very good on audit quality. And acceptance decision for audit and assurance engagement. It was even in my list of 15 articles I have shown you yesterday. So 15 articles plus 5 techniques articles. Now all these articles are coming from that source. 3 articles which can be good for you to take command of this topic, ethical, professional, and quality control issue, and to understand the examiner mindset. A careful analysis of the examiner report. I will be doing that shortly today. And then the 2 questions. One of them would be solved in my live session, and one of them will be given to you as an assignment. So I probably prefer that I do the question number 2 of the recent paper, the March 21, and I'll give you the September-December 20 paper as your assignment. So please ensure that once the day 2 ends today or tomorrow, in terms of the continuation of the agenda, you are doing the assignments for your own self appraisal, and you're also completing the guidance given to you by the tutor. Now, these are previous webinars which I would recommend you to watch on ethical, professional, and quality control issues. The June 21 webinar, the March 21 webinar, and the December 20 webinar. I have given you the hyperlink so you can reach the exact location and position to watch the webinar on ethical, professional, and quality control issue. That will really be beneficial for you. So if you watch the previous 3 webinars on ethical, professional, and quality control issue, along with this one, I think that will give you a very good revision and a very good security of controlling this topic in exam paper. Now let's start to understand what exactly you should know about this topic, ethical, professional, and quality control issue. Let me take on my Word file for some analysis, and then we'll go back and look at the practice platform for the question number 2 of the March 21. Okay, this is a Word file I was using and right before the break, and I just want to start the new topic. So from a new page of this Word file, let's start on with ethical, professional, and quality control issues, and I am abbreviating them as EPQ. So we'll use the short form today. So that's the objective now. Now you need to understand as a student that this topic indeed is an important topic, and it has been a regular feature of the past paper. This is basically the syllabus area B and C, and I think I was very clear yesterday that being a syllabus area B and C, this could be tested anywhere in the paper. So it can come in the section A and it can come in the section B, so you should be familiar with this. So that's number one, right? Then number two, when you look at this topic, ethical, professional, and quality control issues, and particularly look at the ethical issues, I believe a lot of time has been spent in the past webinars on ethical issues. And I also believe that ethical issues is a strong area for students. I hope I'm not wrong, because all of you are capable of picking the ethical issues from the case study. Yes, you might be weak in how you explain the ethical issues. I'll be giving you guidance on that in the next day or so as we proceed towards this topic, ethical, professional, and quality control issues today, and it might end tomorrow. So I think ethical issues is a strong area for students. At least they understand what they have to do from a case study. But when it comes to this area, quality plus professional issues, I think this is an area where students are generally weaker. And I'm using the word carefully, generally weaker. And that's what the examiner also tells us. So I would try to put a careful attention today and sometime tomorrow on quality and professional issues, and let's see how much clarity can be brought in this area and to make you a stronger student rather than a weaker student. So my emphasis today and tomorrow will be more on quality and professional issues, and that's where I want to refine all of you. So let's start the journey. And I hope you agree with my breakup. Ethical is strong and quality and professional is generally weaker. I hope you agree with me, right? Now, when you look at this and you look at the past paper, you know this is a regular feature of past papers, right? It's almost difficult to find an exam sitting without EPQ. So examiner is very, very profound of EPQs, and it is tested on a regular basis in the past paper, sometime for less marks and sometime for more marks. Now, the one thing which is important here, which I should give you first rather than I forgot it later, marking scheme. It's 1 mark per issue identified and explained in exam paper. So any issue, whether it is an ethical issue or it's a professional issue or it's a quality control issue, the marking scheme remains 1 mark per issue identified and explained, plus 1 mark if the question asks for action. So if the question is asking for action, then 1 mark per action if the question asks for action. So a lot of time we've seen past paper questions on ethical, professional, and quality control issues, which do ask for recommend actions. So if the question is asking for recommend actions, then 1 mark per action you write in the exam paper. I hope you're clear on that, right? That's the marking scheme which will remain throughout the topic. Now let's start the journey. Now, when you look at the past papers, the 2 papers I've chosen today, and one is the September, December 20, and one is the March, June 21. I will do a careful analysis of this and you will find so much benefit. If I just first put the September, December 20 paper with you, then the March, June 21 paper with you, and I'm just using the PDF documents of September, December 20. I'm not taking it on the practice platform. Please ensure you are encouraged to use the practice platform, right? If I just show you the September, December 20 paper on your screen, I hope you can see that. I'll do the March 21 on the practice platform just to guide you about the functionalities. I hope you're familiar with the functionalities by now. Can you all see the September, December 20 paper in front of your screen? Okay, you scroll down and I think you have to go to the question number 2. Can you see the question number 2 on your screen for this paper? Okay, you scroll down question number 2A and you go and you look at the requirements. Look at this requirement here, question number 2A. Because I believe the success in the AAA paper lies in reading the requirement. If you look at the first requirement from September, December 20, question number 2A, and you carefully evaluate the requirement, this is the requirement, right, for 15 marks. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, now we need to understand this requirement. A lot of time, the student don't understand the requirement. They're just in haste of solving a question. And that's where the biggest mistake lies in the AAA paper. If you know the requirement, you know the nature of requirement because the requirement keeps repeating in the AAA paper. So if you know the requirement well and you solve many papers, you can be so good on it. Now see this requirement. It says comment on the quality of planning and performance of the audit of the river company. So examiner is saying you need to comment on the quality of planning and performance of the audit of the river company, comma, and after the comma, what you need to do, you need to discuss the quality control, ethical and other professional issues. You need to discuss the quality control, ethical and other professional issues raised and recommend appropriate actions. You need to recommend appropriate actions to be taken. Now, how I see this question as a tutor is that if I am solving this question in the exam paper, I know I have to do two things here. First, I need to discuss issues raised, whatever they are, and I need to recommend actions where possible, because you cannot forcefully write actions, right? Recommend actions where possible. Discuss issues raised and recommend actions. Now, every issue I identify from the case and I explain examiner why it is an issue, I will be fetching 1 mark. So issues raised, I need to identify the issue and explain why it is an issue, and I'll fetch 1 mark for that. So the moment I identify the issue, I get 0.5 marks, and I go down and explaining why it is an issue, I fetch another 0.5 marks. And I put an action for the issue. If possible, I fetch 1 mark per action, 1 mark per action. Now, understand this. No, you not need to give recommendation for every issue. Where possible, you will give a recommendation. So there might be 10 issues and there might be 5 actions, something like that. There might be 7 issues and there might be 3 actions, something like that. But it's not possible that you forcefully write an action for every issue. If you are doing that sort of a strategy, that is a wrong strategy. So discuss the issues and recommend the actions. Now, examiner also wants from you that while you are discussing the issues, there might be many issues in the case study which is impacting upon the quality of planning and performance of the group audit. Quality of planning and performance of the group audit. Now, I believe the issues given in the case study, right? The issues given in the case study in accumulation will be compromising the quality. There might be so many issues in the question which eventually compromise the quality of planning and performance of the audit of the river company. So this word here, comment, I believe this word comment here is to be given as like a conclusion. So you can give, just 1 minute, sorry, you can give a conclusion uh, where you can put an overall comment. You can put an overall comment on the quality of planning and performance of the audit, because every issue given in the paper, directly or indirectly, will be compromising the quality. So instead of you pick up an issue and you write after every issue, thus the quality is compromised, you pick up the second issue and you say thus the quality is compromised, you pick up the third issue and you say thus the quality is compromised, rather than writing that journal statement thus the quality is compromised, which is of no use in exam paper and you're wasting your time, it's better that you pick up an issue and you explain why it is an issue, and when you end the answer you can give a heading of a conclusion, and in 2 to 3 lines you conclude that what major issues have been in the case and they have led to the impairment of the quality. So I think quality will be compromised on an accumulation of the issues, right? I hope you agree with me. So quality is the output of issues. So if there are so many issues in the case study, they will all lead to quality being compromised. So instead of writing that again and again, you can bring it down into one conclusion. Is that clear to all of you? So write an overall comment on quality, right? Rather than wasting time writing it again and again in the answer. I will be demonstrating that, right? Now the last thing. I hope you're all getting my voice and you're all understanding what I'm trying to say, because there is no yes and no coming from your side. You discuss the issue, you recommend the action, and you give an overall conclusion on the quality of the audit. Now, the problem with which I see among student community is that when they are discussing issue, they're very concerned about classifying the issues. This is ethical issue. No, this is a professional issue. This is a quality control issue. They keep confusing. They keep confused about the class of the issue. You're not getting any marks in exam paper for a class of issue. You are a manager. You're not a junior. You're not giving a AAA paper where you give 3 columns like this. And in one column, you put ethical issues. In one column, you put quality control issues. And in the other column, you put professional issues. Is that the way you attempt the AAA paper? You do the classifications in AAA paper? Never. This is such a wrong approach. We are not classifying the issue. We are explaining why it is an issue, because you are a manager and that is the higher level skill you need to demonstrate. Explain why it is an issue. You're not concerned about the class of the issue. You are wasting your time in exam paper if you are thinking about the issue class. So if you pick up an issue and you think, oh, is it a quality control issue or is it a professional issue? And you waste 1 minute, you waste 2 minutes, you waste 3 minutes, and at the end of the day, you don't write anything. But there is a clever student sitting in the exam hall. He picked up the issue and then quickly justified why it's an issue, and you score marks. So examiner is not bothered about that you tell examiner a class of the issue. Examiner is only concerned about that you explained to the examiner that why it is an issue. So you are getting marks for the why. I hope you're all clear on that. I will be demonstrating when I write my answer. So I've been very focal on this in my previous webinars as well, that I really hate students who get into the issue classification. There is no need for issue classifications. It's only about discussing the issue, recommending the action, and giving an overall comment at the end of the answer on the quality which has been compromised. Because quality is the sum of many issues. So many issues together will compromise the quality, because quality is the output of many inputs. So those many inputs will be given in the case study. Now, let's go down and start to understand one more thing. When you read the case study, like the one we were reading, the September-December 20 on your screen again, and you read the opening paragraph of this case study, which is very, very important. A lot of time when you get a question on quality control, ethical and professional issue, listen to me very carefully. Reading the opening paragraph is very, very essential, and I'll tell you why. Now look at this opening paragraph for 2A. I'm copying this opening paragraph for 2A, Control C, and I'm taking this opening paragraph for 2A on my Word file. Reading the opening para is very important in an EPQ question. In an EPQ question, reading that opening paragraph in an EPQ question is very important. But why? I will justify that. So let me first copy the question, copy the opening paragraph here. So this is the opening paragraph from the September-December 20 question. And you copy this opening paragraph here, right? So let's find what is the relevance of the opening paragraph and why, as a tutor, I'm recommending that the opening paragraph is to be read very, very carefully. But why? You will have this question in your mind. Let me clarify that for you quickly. Okay, you read the opening paragraph here from the September-December 20 question number 2A. It is the 1st of July 20x5. You are an audit manager in Welford and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant. Your role includes performing post-issuance quality control review. Post-issuance quality control review. Now understand that what are you doing as an auditor? Are you all getting my voice right? Okay, just give me 1 minute, right? Just give. Okay, I hope you're all getting my voice. I just paused my voice for 1 minute, right? So I was not speaking, so that was the reason there was no voice. I hope you're all getting my voice back with clarity. Okay, that's great. So you are a manager, right? You are a manager responsible for the post-issuance review. Post-issuance review? Is that something important to understand in this opening paragraph? Post-issuance review? Because students do mistakes with it. Post-issuance review is what? Post-issuance quality control review is what? A post-issuance quality control review is after the audit report has been issued. So when is this manager, when are you performing this review? When the audit report has been issued or will be issued? Has the audit report been issued in this case? Yes. So you are a manager, your role includes performing post-issuance audit quality review, and you have been asked to review the audit work performed on River Company for the financial year end 31st of January. You have gathered the following information. So you are performing a review on the audit work of River Company. So has the audit report for River Company issued? So when you are performing a post-issuance quality control review, remember as a student that this is after the audit report has been issued. So when you are writing the action, a lot of time student do mistake and they write actions as if the audit report is yet to be issued, which is wrong. So if you are writing an action, you need to keep in mind that the audit report has been issued already. Can we modify the opinion? No. Can we change the opinion? No. Can we bring an impact on the audit report? No, because the audit reports have been issued. You cannot write actions like change the audit opinion, modify the audit opinion. You cannot write actions like such because they're useless actions to write when the audit report has been issued. Is that clear to all of you? So is reading the opening paragraph important to know whether it is a post-issuance quality control review or is it a pre-issuance quality control review? If it is a pre-issuance quality control review, can you write an action, modify the audit report? If it is a pre-issuance quality control review? Yes. So read the opening paragraph carefully. Is it a pre-issuance or is it a post-issuance? Will make a big difference. Right? So please, that is very, very important to know this is post, and that post will help you writing the right actions. So a lot of times the student write actions as if it's pre when it's post. So all of you have got the importance of reading the opening paragraph from this paper. Okay, so all the issues given below in the September-December 20 paper on your screen, all the issues below, have they been identified after the report has been issued? Like audit team and fees. If you can see that on your screen, everyone. Right? Total time spent on the audit, going concern. So the issues identified here are all post issuance. So can any of these issues impact the audit report, impact the audit opinion? No. If we have done a mistake, right? But can we rectify these mistakes in the next year audit? Can we rectify these mistakes as a lesson for the next year audit? Right? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next question. The question which came in the March 21 exam, the latest one, March, June 21 exams. Let's find this one because this is the latest one and I want to emphasize on this a lot. I think in this paper, it was the question number 2 again. So let's see what was the question number 2 of the March, June 21 exams. Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, just 1 minute then. Okay, thank you. If you can all hear me. Okay, if we can go back to the practice platform. Can you all see the practice platform in front of your screen? Okay, we need to go to the question number 2 from this practice platform. Okay, can you see this question number 2 on your screen from the practice platform? Right, again, you have the right hand side of the screen and you have the left hand side of the screen, right? So look at the right hand side of the screen. It says, it is the 1st of July. Again, just like the September-December 20 question. You are a manager in James and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant. Your role includes performing post-issuance quality control review. So what is the review here in the June 21 exams? Is it the same like the December? Is it the same like the December 20 exam? Post-issuance quality control review. So has the audit report been issued? Yes. And you are currently reviewing the audit of the bond group after the report has been issued, which has a financial year end of 31st of January, and in respect of which an unmodified opinion was issued last month. So already we have issued an unmodified opinion last month. So you are performing a post-issuance review after the opinion was issued. The group specialize in computer components, so on and so forth. You are reviewing the group audit file, so on and so forth. You are reviewing the group audit file of the 4 subsidiaries. So you are reviewing the group audit file of the 4 subsidiaries in the group. All of the 4 subsidiaries are significant components. So is the examiner telling us that all 4 subsidiaries are significant to the group? and has a financial year end of 31st of January. So you are reviewing the 4 subsidiaries of the group, right? You have been provided with the following exhibits. So each exhibit on the left hand side of the screen, I hope if you can see each of these exhibits on the left hand side of the screen, each exhibit relates with one subsidiary. Okay, can you all get my voice with clarity? Okay. Can you see on the left hand side of the screen, you have 4 exhibits. Each of them is one subsidiary. The subsidiary 1 is the Cameron company. The subsidiary 2 is the Marsden company. The subsidiary 3 is the Dean company. And the subsidiary 4 is the Horner company. So there are 4 subsidiaries given here, right? Now, you'll open each subsidiary to see what is the problem in each subsidiary. But before you open each subsidiary and see what is the problem in each subsidiary, you need to know what is the requirement. So just let me show you the requirement. You open up the requirement and I look at this requirement here. The requirement says, in relation to the matter described in the exhibit 1 to 4. So in the exhibit 1 to 4, we have some matters relating to the 4 subsidiaries. So examiner is saying, in relation to the matters in the exhibit 1 to 4, comment on the quality of planning and performance of the group audit and the components of the group, discussing the quality control and other professional issues raised. Is that similar to the December 20 paper? Comment on the quality and planning of the group audit, discussing the quality control and other professional issues raised. So is that same nature requirement? But over here, we are not discussing, there is no ethical requirement here, right? Discussing the quality control and other professional issues raised. So how many matters we have? Cameroon company, we have 8 marks. Marsden company, we have 5 marks. Dean company, we have 5 marks. Horner company, we have 7 marks. So for 8 marks, we need to focus on the issues. Discuss the quality control and other professional issues, right? So that's the requirement in the March-June 21 exam. Now, again, you will open up your word processor given over here. And in this word processor, you will start to write up your answer. So you only have one response option here, which is the word processor in question number 2. You open up the word processor and you start to type in your answer. What you can do, you can just copy the requirement from here, comment on the quality. You can copy this requirement, Control C, and you come to your word processor, and in your word processor, you write question 2, and you put the heading of the question 2 here, comment on the quality. So you copy pasted that. Now, how many comments we have to do? We have 4 companies here, right? So can we just copy those 4 questions, 4 areas from here, A, B, C, D? Just give me 1 minute. If we can copy this from here, A, B, C, D. So we copy this A, B, C, D from here. We go back to the word processor and we formulate our answer, A, B, C, D. A, B, C, and D. See how easy that is to give a computer-based exams? Now, you can leave some space under A, you can leave some space under B, under C, and under D. Now, when you start to read A, Exhibit 1, you will get some points. You will copy paste the points under A, then under B, then under C, then under D. Once you complete the reading and planning, you will start writing the answer. So we'll do at least 2 in the class today. At least the Cameron company and the Marsden company, and you will do the Dean company and Horner company yourself. So I will be guiding you how you read, how you write, and how you identify the quality control and other professional issues in given case study. Are you all clear? Now, before that, look at this. Can you all see in front of your screen the examiner report for the latest exam sitting? This is very, very essential for all of you to read the examiner reports. I encouraged you all to do so in my webinar day 1 yesterday. Now, when you look at this examiner report, can you see the examiner report is giving you the examiner comments on the question number 1 for 4 marks? Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. I'm just muting myself. I hope you can all hear me back, right? So you see the content page, right? On the content page, you find the question number 1 comment. You can read that on your own. But you go down. Can you see the examiner is giving you the question number 2 comments? So I click on the question number 2 and I reach question number 2 automatically. So it's all hyperlinked. Such a good examiner report, right? Now, examiner is giving you the screenshot of the question number 2. I hope you can all see that in front of your screen now. This is exactly the screen. This is exactly the image we saw in the practice platform, right? So examiner is saying this was the question 2. Then the examiner tells you the criticism. So examiner tells us this is a 25 marks question on the bond group. And then the examiner says this is the requirement of the 25 marks question. And then the examiner starts criticizing the students. Now try to understand something very quickly before we conclude and write a very good answer. Can you all see this in front of you, everyone? And you can all hear me? Are you ready for examiner criticism? Because that will help us to write a very good answer. So let's do the vice versa approach. Let's first understand the concern of the examiner when a question comes on quality control, and then let's see if we can resolve the concern shortly. Okay, I'm reading the criticism. Please be with me. In this question, candidates are provided with the quality control findings from the perspective of the performance of the group audit. Each of these have been given with respect to a subsidiary of the group, and there is a details regarding the audit performed by the component auditor and the relevant points, so on and so forth. The points given are those which has caused concern for the quality control reviewer. It is therefore not demonstrating a competence in the audit to repeat the phrase, this is a poor quality, as that is given in the question. Now, when you read the question, was it telling you that you are a manager who has performed a post-issuance quality control review? So the issues you must have identified in the 4 subsidiaries, are they all instance of quality control issues? So examiner is saying when the question is telling you that you have performed a post-issuance review and you have identified the quality control problem, if a student is saying this is a poor quality, examiner is saying this statement repeated by the student is of no value, as this is given in the question. If these points did not reflect poor audit quality, then they would not have been highlighted in the scenario. So what is the sense of picking up every point from the scenario and saying this is a poor quality audit? Tell me, the points given in the scenario are the one which have been highlighted by the manager because they were demonstrating poor quality. So if you tell again to the examiner that these points are demonstrating poor quality, are you adding any value to it, everyone? Right? There is no significance of repeating this, right, in the answer. Because the points given to you in the scenario are assumed to demonstrate a poor quality. So there is no relevance of repeating that. After the full stop, the examiner says, these questions require candidates to evaluate why something demonstrate a poor quality has been performed and what specifically should have been done to address the matter. See, this is the clue. This is the clue. This is what we have to do to get 1 mark. Let me take this to my Word file. This is what the examiner is telling us. Look at the first point here of the examiner. Examiner wants you as a student appearing for September exams that these issues require candidates to evaluate why something demonstrate that a poor quality audit has been performed. So why something demonstrate that a poor quality audit has been performed? So should we just tell examiner that this results in a poor quality? No, we should demonstrate why and what specifically should be done to address the issue. So is the examiner looking for 2 things here to give you 1 mark and 1 mark, 2 marks? So if we want to fetch 1 mark plus the 1 mark, what are we telling examiner? Number 1, we're telling examiner why something demonstrate a poor quality. Number 1, control C, control V. And secondly, what specifically should be done to address this? Control C, control V. Why and what, right? But that's very good, Arsalan. Why and what? So tell why and what, and we get 2 marks. So I think this what is basically the action and the why basically is the issue. Is that clear to all of you? So when we start to write the answer, we'll focus on the why, we'll focus on the what. But I should write with what where necessary, because you cannot write what for every issue, but where necessary, you can write the what. But why is must, right? Is that clear? Can you go back to the criticism of the examiner? So we are just reading the examiner criticism. Even if we cannot solve the question today, we'll solve it at the beginning of the day 3 tomorrow. But let's at least have a clarity on how we should be solving a very good answer either today or tomorrow. If you can go back to the examiner criticism where we were. Okay. We read this, right? The next one. This type of question is typically poorly answered by candidates in comparison to the question set at the planning and the completion stage. So examiner is saying a question on quality control is very poorly answered by candidates. Candidates are very good on a question which comes on risk planning, and candidates are very good on a question which comes on reporting. But candidates are very bad on a question which comes on ethical, professional, and quality control issues. So examiner is not happy with you. Candidates often appear to lack the skill to apply the rules and principles learned to practical scenarios and often provide unapplied answer as a result. As mentioned, unfortunately, many candidates for each issue simply state audit quality is poor or planning was not performed well, which does not demonstrate a candidate understanding of what should have taken place and why. So if you just keep writing audit quality is poor, examiner is not happy with you. Or if you just keep writing planning was not performed, without explaining why. So till the time your answer lacks a why, and you're writing journal statements, audit quality is poor and planning was not performed well, and you think you are impressing your examiner, you're not. You are a manager. After the full stop, examiner tells us it is important to remember that the AAA exam is predominantly application, and as such, journal comments will not obtain credit as a response to each individual planning or quality failing. Often these comments will be restricted to a single concluding mark across the full question. See, was I right? I tell you that comment on the quality means that you give a conclusion at the end of the answer rather than you repeat audit quality is poor for every point. Is the examiner statement contradicts my statement or support my statement? Did I tell you that you need to give a conclusion at the end of the answer giving a comment on the quality? And is the examiner telling the same thing? So is this important? Should I copy this whole statement here and put it in my Word file? Because this really supports what I just mentioned to you. See this. Did I mention you here that you have to give a conclusion with the overall comment at the end of the answer rather than you keep repeating that quality is poor, quality is poor, quality is poor? Everyone? Can you see this Word file? Can you see my breakdown here? Okay, now see what the examiner is telling. Examiner is saying, it is important to remember that the triple exam is predominantly application. So you need to apply. As such, journal comments will not get any credits. Often, these comments will be restricted to a single concluding mark. So if you want to comment on the quality, then this is what the examiner is telling you. Often these comments will be restricted to a single concluding mark across the full question, and as such, candidates cannot obtain additional marks for repeating the same conclusion. So if you keep repeating the conclusion, quality is bad, quality is bad, quality is bad, examiner is not happy with you. Examiner is saying you can write a conclusion at the end of the answer, and for that I will give you extra 1 mark. So will you get 1 mark at the end of the answer? Suppose if you're writing the answer this way, and in the answer there are several issues you're writing, right? Suppose let me justify you one thing here. If I take you to the practice platform, can you see the practice platform again in front of you? Right? Can you all see that? Okay, so Cameroon company. In the Cameroon company, you write the issues and you write the actions. You get to the Marsden company, you write the issues and you write the actions where possible. And for the Dean company, you write the issues and you write the actions. For the Horner company, you write the issues and you write the actions. And you complete up the answer. Now, at the end of the all issues, you write a conclusion. So when you complete Horner, you write a conclusion because they're all 4 subsidiaries of one group, right? So examiner is saying comment on the quality of the planning and performance of the group audit. So once you wrap up all the 4 subsidiaries, the first, second, third, fourth, you give a final conclusion at the end of the answer. And in this conclusion, you comment on the quality of the overall group audit, in respect of 4 subsidiaries above. Is that clear? And examiner saying you can get extra 1 mark for this. There's 1 mark for the conclusion. Is that clear to all of you? So don't repeat quality statement again and again. Don't repeat quality statement again and again. Keep the statement on quality as a conclusion of the question. Is this my perspective, or is this what is the examiner perspective? Often these comments will be restricted to a single concluding mark across full question. Look at this. Look at this. Single concluding mark across the full question. Let me highlight this in a different color. Is that clear? So in your answer, first identify the issues, then discuss the actions, and then give a conclusion at the end. And in this conclusion, comment on the quality. Comment on the quality. Is that clear? Right? So I will be solving the question, Anna, the March 21. So I'll tell you how you write issues and how you write actions. So don't be worried about it. This is part of the agenda of the webinar, right? Right? Actions where possible, right? Actions where possible. And issues, obviously issues are why. So how do you feel something better in the last 30 minutes if you are repeating the AAA paper? My question is particularly to the repeaters here. The way you were solving a question on quality control and professional issues. Muhammad Arsalan, actions are default of this question, whether it is specifically asked for or not asked for. Actions are part of it. You've just seen the examiner report from the June 21 exams. Even though the question is not specifically asking for actions, but the examiner is saying the student should write it. So whether the question asks for action or not, in an ethical, professional, and quality control question, you should write actions, right? I hope you're all clear on it. So is everyone clear on this perspective? So please make a habit of reading examiner reports. They are very, very important source of giving you guidance. And the last thing, similarly, I hope you can see the examiner report back on screen. Just few of the last comments, and then I'll start writing the answer at the beginning of the day 3, because today we can just make the platform, and tomorrow I'll just directly solve the question with you, and we'll shift to the day 3 agenda. Okay, look at this. Similarly, recommendation needs to be specific. So recommendation needs to be specific, and again, an answer which simply state better planning is needed or more training is needed is too generic to score. So if you are giving a recommendation, try to develop a recommendation in the context of the case. So examiner is not liking some journal recommendations coming from student. So examiner is not very happy with this. So examiner is saying similarly, recommendations should be specific to get marks. So examiner wants the recommendations to be specific to get marks. If you just simply write recommendations like better planning is needed, this is too short recommendation. At least the recommendation should be like a sentence, right? So when you're giving a recommendation, at least the recommendation should be like a sentence, and sync to the case study. Sync to the case study. Is that clear to all of you? But if you just write better planning is needed, full stop, that's not right. So you should give an action. What is the literal meaning of the word action? Action means to resolve a problem, to resolve an issue. So if you are resolving a problem and an issue, you need to give a proper recommendation in the context of the case, right? So examiner don't like giving recommendations this way. Okay, let's look at the final aspect from the examiner report. Okay. Another reason many candidates score low marks on these questions arise from failure to appreciate that these reviews are occurring after the audit report has been issued. So is the examiner telling us that why students score low marks on these questions is the reason you fail to appreciate that the audit report has been issued. So has the audit report been issued? And if you fail to appreciate that, you might be writing a wrong answer. This means answers which recommend a long list of additional audit procedures. The answers which recommend a long list of procedures, repeatedly saying that something will need to be resolved before issuing the audit report, or the firm needs to modify the audit opinions, are not appropriate in the circumstances and therefore cannot gain marks. Are you understanding it? So if you say the auditor should perform procedures, how can the auditor perform procedures? The report has been signed. Or if you say modify the report, how can the report be modified? The report has already been issued. So if you're writing actions without knowing the fact the audit report has been issued and you come happy out of the exam center, eventually you will fail the AAA paper because you did the biggest mistake. Is that clear? Is that an important criticism of the examiner here, everyone? Do you appreciate this criticism of the examiner? And is this criticism an eye-opener for all of you when you attempt a question on quality control and professional issues in the past paper? So let me put this summary on my Word file. So another reason why candidates score low marks on these requirements arise from the failure to appreciate that the audit report has been issued, yellow. And this means if you are writing auditor should perform additional audit procedure, is that the right action? Can the auditor perform additional procedure when the report has been issued? Or telling something will need to be resolved before issuing the audit report, is that right? Is that the right statement when the report has been issued? Or the firm needs to modify the opinion, is that the right statement? All is absolutely wrong. So I hope you're finding some encouragement in the examiner reports. The last two paragraphs. As with many questions in the AAA exams, candidates will be better prepared to provide relevant responses if they are able to appreciate where in the audit cycle the question is set. So you should appreciate where in the audit cycle the question is set. So if the question is sent after the report has been issued, appreciate that. The question number 1 is at the planning stage. The question number 3 is at the stage of completion. The question number 2 can be a question like the one we are looking for in the March-June 21 exam. So reading the opening paragraph is very important. So if you read the opening paragraph, you will come across to know that the report has been issued. But yes, if the question tells you the report is yet to be issued, then can you write audit procedures? Can you write audit opinion should be changed? Yes. So I hope you're getting my perspective in a clarity form here. And I hope you're getting the importance of reading the examiner report for every paper you solve at home, because that's very, very important. Is that clear? All of you? Have you found some productivity in this session part 2 when we're looking at the ethical, professional, and quality control issues? So I'm not touching upon the ethical issues because it's a strong area for student. Okay, let's go one by one and start the analysis of the first part of the answer. We still have 20 minutes, so we'll be able to do it. Okay, can you all see the practice platform on your screen? Okay. Should we open the first subsidiary Cameron company and see what are issues in Cameron company? How many marks we have for Cameron? For Cameron, we have 8 marks. We need to write issues, we need to write actions, right? So let's open up the Cameron. And there is one surprise for you, because the question is asking discussing the quality control and professional issues. And you will say there is no, examiner is not asking to discuss the ethical issues. And you are doing the biggest mistake, because if you are a good student and you have read the topic quality control from the book or from the examiner article, do you appreciate that the quality control issues includes ethical issues? Do you appreciate that ethical issues is part of the quality control issues? If I show you the examiner article, which is written on audit quality, if I show you the examiner answer written on audit quality, just give me 1 minute for that. Okay, can you see the technical articles in front of your screen, everyone? And you go down, 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 till the time you reach the article on audit quality. Audit quality, a perpetual current issue. See, here it is. I click on it and the article open. Audit quality, a perpetual current issue. Can you see on your screen audit quality, a perpetual current issue? Just 1 second. Okay, can you see it now? Audit quality, a perpetual current issue. Okay, you scroll down and see over here. See the screen over here. Examiner tells us what are components of quality. Look at this. What are components of quality? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've covered them in my previous webinar. And in the 6 elements of quality, look at this, ethical requirements is the component of quality. So if the question is saying comment on the quality control and professional issues, and the question is not specifically saying ethical issues, is ethical issues part of quality control issues? Do you agree with me? Okay, so let me put this on the Word file and then we start reading the Cameron company. Okay, look at this note. Very important note for the student. Let's write it as a student note. Okay, listen to the student note very carefully, all of you. If a question asks for comment on the quality control and professional issues, you still need to comment on ethical, you still need to comment, just 1 minute, sorry. You still need to comment on ethical issues in the answer if the case study has ethical issues. If the case study has ethical issues, despite the fact that the question is not specifically asking for ethical issues. Ethical issues. Ethical issues are part and parcel of quality control issues. And if there is an ethical issue, the quality will be compromised, right? I hope you agree with me. If there is an issue relating to ethics, eventually that will compromise the quality of the audit. If the auditor is not independent, it will compromise the quality of the audit. Part and parcel of the quality control issues. So even though the question is not specifically asking you to write ethical issues, but is ethical issues blended in the quality control terminology? So is quality control terminology a very broad terminology? So do you understand the quality control terminology includes ethical issues? So you can do a biggest mistake. You'll say in the March-June 21 exams, question number 2, examiner didn't ask for ethical issues, so we are not writing it. You should write it if there is an ethical issue in the case study. So if in the case study there is an ethical issue, will you ignore it? Will you ignore it and say, no, examiner has not asked for ethical issues? You will write it because ethical issues are part of the quality control issues. I hope you all agree with me. Have you all understood this? Everyone, have you understood this or not? Okay, that's great. And even if the ethical, professional, and quality control issue question is not specifically asking for actions, will you write it or not? Is not specifically asking for actions, you will still write them. Is that clear? So I hope these two student notes will help you a lot. These two student notes will help you a lot, right? Okay, let's start back to the question. Right, we just have 15 minutes, so we'll start and we'll wrap it up tomorrow. Okay, can you all see the practice platform on your screen? Cameroon company, right? So Cameroon company, 8 marks. So I'll open up my word processor, and with my word processor, I'll just shift my word processor on the right hand side of the screen, and I need to answer my question on Cameroon, 8 marks. So let's open Cameroon company question for 8 marks. Okay, let's start reading Cameroon. Okay, I'll open it. I'm opening the exhibit Cameroon. Can you all see the exhibit Cameroon opening in front of your screen? Let me just zoom it out for you. I hope you can all see it now in a zoom form. Just let me reduce the zoom. Okay, I hope you can see it, right? Okay, I'm reading the question, right? Your firm audit all group companies with the exception of Cameroon, a subsidiary which was acquired during the last financial year, right? So our firm is auditing the entire group company with the exception of Cameroon, a subsidiary which was acquired during the last financial year. Was the examiner telling us all of the subsidiaries are significant to the group, right? So all subsidiaries are significant, right? See, if there is any question you want to ask, you have the opportunity of a WhatsApp group, right? So I'm just continuing with Cameroon. If you have any questions, please put them on the WhatsApp group. That is the best support you all have available. And Rodwell, it's not clear what. Are you not looking at the screen well? Is the screen well for all of you? Can you see Cameroon company on your screen, everyone? And is that readable for all of you? Okay. So Cameroon was acquired by the group in April 20x4. So Cameroon was acquired by the group in April 20x4 and is audited by Kerry Associate, a small local firm. So Kerry is the auditor for Cameroon. We are not doing the audit of Cameroon. Cameroon also outsourced its internal audit department to Kerry Associate. The Cameroon also outsourced its internal audit department to Kerry Associates. Is that the first ethical issue? Because Kerry Associate is also providing the external audit to Cameroon. Is that right? Is Kerry Associate the external auditor for Cameroon? Yes or no? And is Kerry Associate also providing internal audit services to Cameroon? So if the same audit firm provides internal as well as external audit service, is that known as a self-review threat? So is that the first issue? Cameroon also outsourced its internal audit function to Kerry Associate. Should I press Control C here? Should I go back to my word processor and under Cameroon company, should I press Control V here? Have we identified the first issue before we elaborate it tomorrow? Right? First one. Okay, let's see the second issue. Go back to Cameroon company. Okay, the first one. Next, the section of the external audit working paper provided by Kerry Associate and relevant to the internal control contain very little documentation other than a cross-reference to the file maintained by the internal audit team and the statement that we can rely on the internal controls as they have been tested by our firm. See, this is the self-review problem. Kerry Associate, being the external auditor of Cameroon, knows the fact that the internal control services are provided by the same firm. So does that make Kerry Associate reluctant to review internal controls? Will Kerry Associate be reluctant to review the internal controls when they come to the audit? because they know the same firm is performing the internal audit function. So will you lose your professional skepticism in that way? Will you be professionally skeptical to review the internal controls, knowing the fact that your same firm audits the internal controls and same firm audits provides the external audit, everyone? So is that a statement where professional skepticism is losing? We can rely on internal control as they're tested by our firm. So is that a statement where we are losing our professional skepticism? Is that a professional issue? So should we go back to our Cameroon company and paste here? We can rely on internal control. That's a very wrong statement, because you should have tested internal controls even though your same firm has reviewed them, because there can be some problems. There can be some problems done by your same firm. So even though your same firm has done the internal controls, you should test them again. You should review them again, just to ensure that there is nothing wrong done by your same firm. So that's the problem number 2. I'll be justifying the problem and I will be telling you the actions to this problem once I start writing the answer. Let's go to the next paragraph. In respect of Kerry Associates, the group audit working paper contained the following statement. Is Kerry Associate another auditor? Is Kerry Associate another auditor? And it's not the group auditor, right? So in respect of Kerry Associate, the group audit working papers contains the following statement. Our firm can rely on the work of Kerry Associates, as one of James and Company audit partner left the firm to become the audit partner at Kerry, and he was involved with the audit of Cameroon company. Is that another problem, that one of the partner of James company, which is the group auditor, left, and he's now the partner of Kerry Associate, and he was involved with the audit of Cameroon company. So is that problem? One of the James audit partner left and become the audit partner at Kerry, and he's involved in the audit of the Cameroon company. Is that a familiarity threat? Is that another problem? Control C, Control V. Is that a familiarity threat? Right. So when the group auditor interacts with Kerry Associates, do they have a familiarity association with Kerry Associate because one of their partner is part of Kerry Associates? Does that create a familiarity association? So one of your partner of James left and joined Kerry. So by virtue of that joining, is there a familiarity? When the audit team interacts with Kerry Associate, will the audit team be knowing the partner of Kerry? Will they have association with Kerry partner? And he's involved, right? He was involved with the audit of Cameroon. And yes, very right, OA. It can also be an intimidation threat. It can also be an intimidation threat, because the partner can intimidate the team members of James Company because he's a partner. The junior team members, the manager team members can feel intimidated. Okay, next point. James Company partner is involved in the audit of the Cameroon company. That's the next problem. Other than some backgrounds about Kerry Associate, which has been printed from the website to provide the background information, there is nothing else on their file. Tell me if you have done the topic group audit. When you rely on the work of a component auditor as a group auditor, do you check the component auditor for competence, independence, and experience before you rely on the work of a component auditor? So James Company being a group auditor, should James Company check Kerry for experience, competence, and independence? But have they done it in the right manner? Because they had a familiarity threat, so they compromised everything. They just checked the background of Kerry from the website, and there is nothing else on the file. Have they checked Kerry license to operate as an audit firm? Have they checked Kerry QCR ratings, Kerry reputation? Have they seen any public information about Kerry? So have they done the right amount of check on Kerry Associates? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have they done the right amount of check on Kerry? Or have they checked Kerry on a very casual manner, in a very casual manner? Right? So is there a problem? There is nothing else on the file in relation to this? So have they done the right check and balance on the component auditor? So should I copy this statement and paste it on my issues? Right? So that's a weak assessment, right? Totally agree. So let's copy this. We got 4 issues so far, right? So the way you should have checked the component auditor, you have not checked that way. You should have a sound knowledge of group audits. I recommended you to read an article on group audit, watch my YouTube session on group audit. You should have an idea how the group auditor interacts with the component auditor. That's a very important area of the AAA syllabus. So if you are not sound on this, don't expect the knowledge to come to you in the webinar. The webinar is just focused on practice, not on knowledge. And the webinar is not a classroom. So you cannot expect everything coming in the webinar. It is just a 15 hours free of cost resource which ACC is providing you. So you should study, you should read the books, you should have the knowledge of what is the role of a group auditor with a component auditor, right? So that's the next point. The last one before we wrap up the session today. Next and last paragraph. The group audit working paper also include a note relating to the consolidation of the Cameroon in the group financial statement. Cameroon prepares the financial statements using the local accounting rules, fine, which is allowed under the national regulation. So do Cameroon has a different accounting standards than the group? They're using the local standards, right? It does not use the IFRS. The group audit partner commented in the working paper that the local accounting rules are very similar to the IFRS standards. So there is no need to perform any additional audit work in relation to the consolidation of Cameroon due to its using different accounting policies to the rest of them. Do you understand that the partner conclusion here is a bit fishy? Because the group audit partner commented in the working paper that the local accounting rules are very similar to the IFRS. They can be. So there is no need to perform additional work. Even though they're very similar, should we perform work on consolidation? Should we check that whether the local accounting rules have been converted to IFRS in a very proper manner? So there might be similarities, right? There might be similarities between the local standards and IFRS. We are not denying that. But should you check and confirm that? Should you perform work on the consolidation schedule to ensure that the local standards have been converted to IFRS in a very proper manner and no mistakes have been done? So is that the last problem? The group partner commented that the local standards are very similar to IFRS and there is no need to perform any additional work in relation to consolidation. Control C and you go back to the word processor and you press Control V. So we got almost like 5 issues, 8 marks. If I convert these 5 issues into explaining why it is an issue, will I get 5 marks straight away? And for 5 issues, if I can write 3 actions, will I get 8 marks? So I have 5 issues on screen. You can all see that, right? So if I convert these 5 issues into 5y, will I get 5 marks, everyone? Hamza, see, you need to read the case drop down. I read the case drop down with you, right? And in order of the case, whatever issues I found, have I noted them down on my word processor? Now the next step is to convert them to an answer, right? And then when I'm converting them to an answer, I will be writing the actions and I will formulate a 8 marks answer for you. Now tomorrow when I open the day 3, I will start directly from Cameroon company. After completing the Cameroon company tomorrow, I will go to the March 10 company, the B requirement, so that I can guide you how you read, how you identify the issues, and how you explain the issue and how you write actions. Once I complete the March 10 company question, I will also be telling you how you write a conclusion, right? I will also be telling you how you write a conclusion, and then you will complete Dean company and Horner company as your assignment. So we'll start day 3 with the leftover agenda of day 2, and then day 3 tomorrow will focus on the question number 3 of the recent paper, which is about reporting. So tomorrow we are starting a new topic, completion and reporting. But before completion and reporting, I think 1 hour less than 1 hour, I think 45 minutes. 45 minutes at the start of the session will be spent on quality control and professional issue. And after 45 minutes, we'll start with completion and reporting. Don't miss completion and reporting because there are so many misconceptions students have with completion and reporting. So day 3 is completion and reporting, but we still start day 3 with the leftover of the day 2. I hope you're all sound. You had a good session today. If you can just drop a quick feedback. Have you been able to learn something good today from the day 1 carry forward effect at the start of the day 2? And then the day 2 agenda, quality control. Have you been able to extract something good out of it? Right. So I believe you will complete Cameroon reading before tomorrow's session, and you will read the March 10 reading tomorrow. So I'll just spend 45 minutes on Cameroon and March 10 tomorrow, and then I'll start with completion and reporting. But I will prefer when you come to the class tomorrow, come with the reading of Cameroon and March 10. That will make the session more productive. Right. Thank you very much for your feedback. If you had a question, a technical question, you can put it on the WhatsApp group, and in the next 24 hours, I'll find time to answer it. Thank you very much all for participating in the day 2 of the AAA Practice to Pass webinar for September 21 exams. I am Kashif Kamran signing off from the day 2. Have a good day ahead. Study effectively, and I'll see you tomorrow with the day 3 live agenda. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Allah Hafiz.